Hi everyone, it's Ren here. I hope you're doing well. I'm going to talk today about the importance of having the right approach to writing if you want to produce an interesting body of work that you're happy with, if you have aspirations to publish, or just be proud that in your life you've written a book or a series of short stories or anything else. It could be about literature or it could be about philosophy. Really, the possibilities are infinite, but a lot of the time I find that people who could have a lot of creativity, it's visible in the way they are, in the potential that they exhibit, the remarks they come up with and stuff, and that they would like to create things, but sometimes they don't think they're good enough. Sometimes they think the enterprise is too impressive, too hard, say like of writing a book, for example. I think that I could provide some useful advice because although I'm not like, a best-selling author or anything, I still have recently, ever since I reached like to age 27, I'm 31 now, I've been able to be very prolific with my writing. I really noticed like an upward curve in my prolificness compared to before. And this is, I think, partly due to stuff that I learned along the way. And if I can impart some of it to some people among you who would like to, channel their creativity into something concrete, into like an actual piece of writing, hopefully what I'm saying in this video can be useful to you. So I'm going to try to structure this video a little bit better than my previous ones. I like the stream of consciousness methods. I'm probably going to stick to it for the most part, but we'll see if I can start to incrementally add little bits of structure. So I think that I'm going to divide my advice regarding how to produce a piece of writing in the different parts. So the first part, the most important part, is I think that when you want to write something substantial and you're serious about it, but you're still a bit intimidated about, how to go about it, how much work it's going to be. The first thing to keep in mind is that it must always be fun. It must always be playful. If there's one thing that has helped me massively, and I have been able to verify the results, is just to make sure that the subject matter that I write about is one that I don't just find intriguing or interesting from a distance, or that I would like people to think that I'm expert on it or something, is to really myself, when I contemplate the idea of sitting on my desk to write on it, I'm sort of excited, it's fun, the child in me is awoken. And that can really be the case. It's all about identifying topics that really entertain you. So, because, what you have to bring in terms of intelligence and depth, your own talent will bring it, but you need to keep in mind that it needs to be fun for you. And if it's not fun, there's always going to be a point where you'll stop doing it. It's not sustainable. So make sure that you're almost childishly excited by the prospect of writing something when you pick your topic. Very important. The second aspect, I think, which could be a bit controversial, personally for me, it makes a big difference, but that could also be the way that I function. It's to believe sincerely that you have something to say, something to contribute, so that not only is it fun for you, but you think that, say, compared to the average percentage of the population, you're a bit better than what you imagine the average person to be at this. It's not like a super ambitious goal, you don't need to think that you're the best in the world, but to still believe that you can bring something interesting, an interesting perspective. To bring an interesting perspective, You don't have to think, oh, I'm a genius, I need to be a genius in this or not. No, it's not. It's just a matter of really thinking that compared to the average person in this particular domain, not in all domains, but in that domain, yeah, I've researched this, I have a great interest in that. I have friends on a forum that I love that are big into astrology, so like some of them, it strikes me, could totally write a book on astrology, and I think at least one or two of them are seriously considering it, and I find it very exciting because that's exactly the approach to have. A domain about which you're passionate and that you've studied enough to sort of have something to say. Because if you believe that, it will give you the necessary confidence at times to surpass those moments where you might start doubting yourself and think, oh, after all, maybe what I'm writing about is not useful, it's not really bringing anything new, people are not going to be interested in that. And, at the end of the day, if you have that core belief, it's going to stick to you, and it's going to be the push in the moments where it's difficult. The third aspect, I think, is the relationship that you will have to time. This is also, I think, very important, because when you start a project that might take you a long time to do, often you will put pressure on yourself in terms of thinking, oh, but it's going to take me so much time to do it. Will I have the courage? Will I have the stamina? What if it takes 10 years? These things. And really, the trick here, I think, is a psychological one, is to make yourself believe what I think is the truth, based, again, on my own experience now, which is that time is actually not your enemy. It can be your ally. So instead of seeing it as an adversary, a kind of clock that you have to work against when you're writing, I decided I'm going to write for 2 hours, I have to be productive. Actually, believe me, that is not the right approach. Do not convince yourself that you have to be productive, because first of all, that will kill the playfulness, the child in you that's excited about writing. But also, what's the point? Imagine that you had the option, a genie that appeared gave you the option to end your life, or not to end your life, sorry, to sort of have a biography by the end of your life. Wow, that was you're going to think I'm weird, but I promise you it was not a Freudian slip. So by the end of your life, to have 2 good books published, would you not say it's already really good? I think you would say yeah. But imagine that you're 30 or 40. You have a lot of time to publish these 2 books. So really, fundamentally, time is not your enemy. It's your interpretation of time and your relationship to time that can be your enemy. Honestly, when you decide that you want to write, just write for a certain amount of time. Do not impose rigid boundaries on yourself. My personal advice would be, especially at the start, when it's the amount of word the word count is small at the start, to cut up your efforts into small sessions. Of course, it depends on personality, but try to focus on small sessions. Give yourself maybe an hour every 2 days or something, and in that hour, keep it fluid. Don't tell yourself, oh, I must start at 1:00 and stop at 2:00. Just say around 1 I start, around 2 I stop. Actually, if I feel like continuing, I can maybe continue until 2:30 or something. So have an idea of boundaries, keep them fluid, and not put pressure on yourself. And within that span of time, see it as an open field. You enter into it, you're sort of isolated, you want to focus on that, you want to play, and you start fiddling around with different sentences, you start constructing something, and just have regularity, and that would be my fourth point, which is also related to time. Regularity, it's the key. Believe me, it's the key. It doesn't matter if you don't do long sessions, but try to be regular, and keep in mind that if you force yourself to be regular at first a little bit, after about a week or 2, it will just become habit, and you'll be so used to it by then, especially if it's fun, that you will just literally expect to be doing it, and you would almost find it strange not to do it. And you realize that if you write a little bit every day or a little bit every 2 days for a few months, you'll have 50 pages, 100 pages, and you will get the impression that you produce all this material in like an effortless way. And that is so important, to never feel like there's efforts expended when you're writing. It's like a massive contributor to being prolific, because it's like a bit every day. It's very diffuse. The intensity is there, but you don't really feel it except as fun. Honestly, by the end, after 6 months, you're like, oh, actually, my word count is huge. Yeah, I've nearly got a book, you know. And by the time that you've got the body of the book, or even like half of it, you've got a lot of pressure gone, because you know that you've done most of the work. So that's great. By the time that you've finished the first draft, then you can return to it and start focusing on like ironing out the bits and pieces. That is hard, requires attention to detail, is not always fun. It's true, and is the hardest part of the work. I myself struggle with it a bit. But keep in mind, by then, there's no pressure to write. There's no pressure to have the blank page. There's no pressure to be creative, really, because you've already created. It's all about taking care of your baby and making sure it's as beautiful as possible. Thank you, and I hope this has been useful.